Hello folks, Minmax Munchkin back with a video about the latest Unearthed Arcana, revisiting and revising some of the earlier subclasses released for your and my playtesting enjoyment. Emphasis on testing because I suspect much less people will be actually playing these subclasses now with this global Rona bugger house arrest situation at least temporarily coming to a certain type of end. And people finally, at least maybe theoretically, being able to get back to work and chase the dollars they haven't been able to earn for the past month or two. Speaking about the dollars, consider chucking a buck my way if you enjoy listening to my ramblings. The Patreon link is down in the video description. It's 100% optional as always, but at the very least consider rolling a natural 20 on the like and subscribe buttons. Doing that really helps these videos successfully adventure through the dozens of traps scattered throughout the YouTube algorithm dungeons and find their way into your YouTube front page recommendations. Now, let's begin the side-by-side comparisons of older and newer UA features with the first one in the PDF document, the Phantom Rogue. It's a decently modified, reflavored, revived rogue, which back then, to me at least, seemed like less than a half-baked concept Jeremy Crawford came up with during a shower rather than a reasonably viable playtest option. On the other hand, half of my own videos are just mental gymnastics I come up with at 5 AM during my many bouts of insomnia, while I'm juggling random thoughts on the toilet seat, so I just may be a hypocrite. I don't know. What I do know is that Whispers of the Dead is basically a buffed up tokens of past lives. It is now tied to a short rather than a long rest. I still think it's a somewhat of a trap option. The problem may arise when inexperienced players select expertise in a skill or tool given by this feature, only to lose it later when they swap them for something else. However, it's a reasonably easy thing to avoid, and in the overwhelming majority of cases, extra skills and tools are a net gain, especially when they are flexible like the ones provided by this feature. Wails from the Grave is loosely based on Bolts from the Grave. There are a couple of issues I have with it. First, I don't really understand how a rogue with this distinct understanding of death now deals psychic instead of necrotic damage. To me, that just makes zero thematic sense. Mechanically, sure, necrotic damage resistances and immunities are more common compared to psychic damage resistances and immunities, so it may have been done for balancing reasons. However, instead of giving you an effective bonus action attack option similar to Bolts from the Grave, you have this weird option to deal extra damage to a second target. I'm not even going to talk about the poor wording, unclear to me whether you attack that second target or you simply deal damage to it after your first attack hits the first target. Even if it's automatic damage, you still can't do it to a single creature, so if you're fighting one tough monster, say maybe a lone dragon protecting its treasure hoard, this feature is basically useless. My opinion is that balancing and optimizing rogues means giving them more attacks instead of increasing their damage. Usually more attacks result in a more consistent and reliable damage output. Increasing the damage itself makes things way more swingy, resulting in some combat encounters where you miss all of your attacks and deal 0 damage, while in other encounters you land one or more lucky crits and deal more damage than the rest of the party combined. If you're a gambler at your core, you may find this playstyle fulfilling, but to someone like me who is notoriously unlucky with his attack rolls and saving throws, it's a recipe for breaking my fists while I'm angrily punching the wall. Yes, that's why I almost never play single class rogues. Revived nature feature has been completely scrapped, removed, so now diseases, poison, lack of food, drink, air and sleep affect you just like anybody else. All of this, of course, results in a much weaker level 3 rogue with this theme of death mastery than it was before, right? However, this lack of low level power is compensated at level 9 when tokens of the departed give you everything revived rogue gets at level 13 and even a bit more. The captured soul tokens of your enemies give you advantage on death saves, which makes total thematic sense. Advantage on constitution saves covers for that lack of poison resistance you now don't have at level 3, and also makes you less susceptible to other debilitating effects. Being able to ask the souls one question each is a nice plan B option for those situations when maybe the enraged barbarian party member kills the enemy before you even get the chance to question it. It will be harder to intimidate it into telling the truth, since it's already dead, but now at least you have a chance. It's a much better feature compared to revived rogues connect with the dead, which was totally lackluster to begin with. Ghost Walk, like its name suggests, allows you to take a spectral form that gives you a minor hovering capability, makes you harder to hit, and allows you to access areas that would otherwise be out of reach. It's loosely based on Revived Rogue's level 17 feature called Ethereal Jaunt, and seeing how Revived Rogue's level 13 feature has been basically ported down to level 9, this is another decent buff at higher levels, at least in my opinion. Death Knell is a plain and simple but more damage, even if inconsistent, will kill your enemies faster for sure. It solidifies the Phantom Rogue as a very viable and potent high-level option. Sadly, official adventures never go this far. You go up to level 11, 12 as far as I know. But for homebrew modules and home games, especially those set in grim, dark settings like, I don't know, Ravenloft or something else, Phantom Rogue is a very, very good fit in my opinion. An interesting bit about Phantom Rogue is that its number of whales, whales of the grave, and soul tokens is limited by proficiency bonus. I think more subclasses could and should be tied directly to the proficiency bonus instead of any ability score. It makes these, their features less multiple ability score dependent to begin with, and their capabilities follow along the character's progression, allowing for more flexibility in terms of ability score improvements and feat selection. Another subclass whose features improve with proficiency bonus is the Genie Warlock Patron. It is of course based on the noble genie presented in the earlier Unearthed Arcana a couple months ago. Link to that video is in the description. Don't forget to bind all the genies to the like and subscribe buttons if you're already scrolling down to check that video out. This newest Genie Patron iterations feels much more fleshed out, less generic. The Genie table is both flavorful and mechanically relevant, as the choice of your Genie Patron's kind affects your other features. Genie expanded spells have been further, expanded with spells that correspond with the Genie Patron kinds. Dao's spells seem best suited for lower levels, particularly Spike Growth for combat encounters. Genie and Marid peak in between high tier 2 and low tier 3 character levels with spells like Greater Invisibility and Cone of Cold. Ifriti seems to be the most flexible choice, with solid fire blasting spells throughout the entirety of the first 10 levels. Granted, this option doesn't have as much utility as the other ones, but obviously there's the good old Fireball, of course, for everybody's enjoyment. If in doubt, cast Fireball. This packed magic flexibility is a strong selling point for me, at least, improving the replayability of the subclass by keeping things fresh and different every time. Wish can now be picked via 17th level Mystic Arcanum feature. The spell has been added to the class's list of spells, which fits perfectly into the theme of the subclass and gives it a unique Warlock power in tier 4. Genie's Vessel is a revamped Collector's Vessel feature that no longer offers those weird tethering benefits. Instead, you can self-isolate yourself, something which we've all got used to lately, I believe. The time you can spend inside the bottle is bound to your doubled proficiency bonus, same as Genie's Wrath extra damage. The big nerf, in my opinion, is that this vessel has been made destructible by giving it armor class and hit points, even though it is basically on your person at all times, making it effectively immune to the damage of most spells. To me, it isn't entirely clear what other non-spell area damaging effects are supposed to inflict damage to it. This will probably need to get addressed once this subclass becomes official. Elemental Gift is similar to Elemental Resistance, the difference being you're locked into a single elemental damage resistance based on your Genie's Patron kind, so you can really pick and choose it, but I mean, it makes sense. Flight is a game changer at level 6, and the fact you can use it more times as your proficiency bonus increases at higher levels only makes your 3-dimensional mobility that much more ridiculous. Sanctuary Vessel is much better than Protective Wish in my opinion for a class that isn't known as a damage sponge. The Vessel, though still easily destructible, offers similar benefits as Leomund's Tiny Hut. A semi-safe sanctuary for a long rest, in most cases. The 10-minute short rest that stacks your proficiency bonus on top of healing dice is situational, but if you don't have an hour to sit around licking your wounds, it will facilitate quick turnaround in between combat encounters, especially in dungeon crawly scenarios. Genie's Entertainment has been scrapped completely, which is a significant nerf at level 10, but at level 14 you get Limited Wish, which allows you to get a similar spell emulation effect like a wish spell itself. On one hand, it seems a bit lazy and uncreative to just give you a sort of like this lesser wish option, but to a player with sufficient system knowledge, this is a goldmine offering unmatched spellcasting flexibility, rivaling or even surpassing that of Bard's Magical Secrets feature. Order of the Scribes Wizard is very loosely based on the abandoned Archivist Artificer concept. Thematically, it does make more sense to have it fleshed out on a wizard rather than an artificer, so let's dissect it for a few minutes. At level 2 you get 2 features right away. The first one, Wizardly Quill, allows you to express a bit of artistry via different ink colors and erase them easily if you don't like what's written down or you don't like how it looks. However, the most important benefit is a quicker and cheaper transcription of all spells you find during adventures into your Awakened Spellbook. This special spellbook takes a page out of the old Lore Mastery Wizard Unearthed Arcana, specifically the Spell Secrets feature, which was and still is considered overpowered or even broken by so many people, including me. The changing of spell damage types is somewhat curbed and tamed now, because you need to have another spell of a desired damage type in your spellbook. However, if you kind of like dig a little bit deeper into it, this supposed limitation is easily overridden by Chromatic Orb spell, which offers you so many different damage types to work with and quickly turns Archivist into a character that's never bothered by damage resistances and immunities, ever. The subclass simply changes the damage types on the fly without any issues. Personally, I'm not opposed to the idea of changing the spell damage types, but it has to have a certain drawback. Some kind of potential for things to go south. I think it should be a higher level feature at the very least, probably locked behind some kind of spellcasting ability check on top. Difficulty, DC, can be drawn from a fixed list of damage types, for example fire and poison being easier to swap around, because they are more common damage types, but they're also more resisted and immune to damage types. But then like Acid and Thunder having a higher DC because less monsters are resistant or immune to Acid and Thunder damage types. Alternatively, the DC can simply be something like 10 plus the spell slot level being used to cast a spell. Anything is better than 100% success rate on changing the fundamentals of known magic and spells. Changing fireballs into acid balls and lightning bolts into thunderbolts is cool on paper, and again, I'm not opposed to the idea of a character who can do something like that, but making it a no-risk, super high reward type of deal quickly ruins the already finicky 5th edition balance as a whole, and I think this feature needs to be changed, balanced, nerfed, whatever you wanna call it. Master Scrivener at level 6 can potentially conserve a lot of spell slots over the course of the entire campaign. I wouldn't call it broken or overpowered, but it will definitely give you some mileage. You can mass produce invisibility, hold person, blindness, deafness, or even chromatic orb, which we already kind of like mentioned before. Casting them as one level higher than the minimum goes a long way in tier 2. More damage, more effects, less spell slots being used, where most characters end their adventuring careers anyway, you don't go much higher than level 10 in most cases. The feature loses some of its potency and relevancy at higher levels, but if you're into scroll scribing and scroll making, just making as many scrolls as possible, it will cut the costs and times required to do it radically. So yeah, it's still gonna be somewhat relevant at higher levels. Manifest Mind allows the consciousness of your awakened spellbook to form into a spectral construct. The construct, while intangible and fairly mobile, can be damaged and is rather squishy, but it can also be used as an origin of your spells, and you know, it can be used a number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus. You can also use it in a similar fashion like Find Familiar, but the fact it glows makes it unfit for most scouting or spying scenarios, at least from my experience, you know, as far as I can tell. One with the Word offers two main benefits, one that is consistent and very useful, another one situational and potentially super clutch in those rare, you know, TPK cases, you know, total party kill situations. First, you can swap places with the spectral manifestation of your awakened spellbook, therefore allowing it to stay above 0 hit points for longer, while still allowing you to have a bit more flexibility in terms of the damage spell ranges, you know, area of effects, you know, cones, all of that stuff. The number of times you can do this is limited by your proficiency bonus, but due to it being +5 at level 14 when you get this feature, it is a fairly plentiful resource on its own, and in most cases you won't really have to pay too much attention to it. The other benefit is the fact you can basically revive yourself as long as you have spells in your spellbook. This is very situational, but imagine a scenario where the entire party dies and the enemies survived, but they took a sizable chunk of damage, you know. For whatever reason, they linger around for a minute after, maybe they even pick your spellbook, only for you to materialize yourself 5 feet away from your spellbook, which preserved your soul and your essence within itself. With this feature, right? Even with 1 hit point, you can still live for 1 or maybe even 2 rounds, just long enough to go all in on them, maybe even dying multiple times in the process, only to come back again like 1 minute later. And, you know, with the last ditch effort, finish them off and then actually turn the combat scenario, which was supposed to kill all of you, into a, well, sort of like a Pyrrhic victory. You know, your party members died, but you're still alive, so maybe you can do something about it. You can, you know, gently repose them, put them in a coffin or something, get them to a cleric in some city, get them revived. So, while unlikely that scenario is possible thanks to this feature, and I can only fantasize how epic something like that occurring at the actual table in the actual play, you know, would be. Overall, Archivist needs more work and rebalancing in my opinion. The damage changing mechanic of spells at level 2 is way too powerful. It needs to be further limited, maybe by proficiency bonus, like half of it rounded up, or dependent on successful spellcasting ability checks of some sorts. Maybe even making it eat away at your hit points, similar to Evocation Wizard's level 14 over channel feature. Moving it into a level 6 or even level 10 feature slot makes sense too. It's definitely too much power and flexibility too early on. I mean, level 2 being able to change the fundamental nature of spells is a bit too quick in my opinion. You need a bit more levels if you ask me. So, yeah, I mean, if you ask me, basing the limits and uses of features on a proficiency bonus instead of ability score modifiers is a mechanical concept worth exploring further. It's been implemented in all of these 3 subclasses to a varying degree, and I think it makes sense. After all, the more you use or do something, the more proficient you're at that thing. Revived Rogue to me looks a bit too nerfed at lower levels. Sorry, not Revived, Phantom Rogue. But it definitely picks up in power later on. Genie Warlock's mechanics are now much closer to flavor of the subclass as a whole, and it offers variety unlike any other Warlock patron so far. Archivist Wizard again is just way too powerful way too early, and I wouldn't mind seeing its damage changing mechanic further limited and nerfed in some way. Don't forget to increase this channel's proficiency in the YouTube algorithm by keeping that like button phantom, putting the subscribe button into the genie bottle, and sharing this and all other videos throughout the internet archives. Special shout out to all of my patrons: Mike, Matthew, Ewing, BardlyManHardlyTrying, Rogor, Kaleron, SuburbanHell, Cory Clausen, Albert, Kwak, Gary, Course, Brad Oldham, Bredwin, Joel C Alcazar, Shawn Bower, your boy Fox, Mannozzi Stefano, Sean Clay, Adekoya, Jeremy, Sirois, Lunatic Dragon, bittenbi, Darth Xín, Ebonhawk, Devin Jache, Alex Bell, Harry Howell, CrackedMask, Nathan, Keilan, Udell 18, Russ Helms, Undead Owl Goddess, Ted Rygar, Derek Peck, Devon Troeger, Sean Walker, Wesley Shick, Matthew Joyce, Nicholas Joseph, Francisco Martinez, Maligaant Menuk, Alexandre Audet, Jacob Nether, Pixel Junkie, Devin, Robin Smith, Jonah Katz, Aiden Musumesi, Kyler Beverly, Noob God, Techie 3D, Stephen Keyser, John Saylor, Bourbon Vernis Posting, James Randolph, Edgewalker, Nathan L. Shady Banks, Crystal Luna, AB Codes, number 01135, Michael Monton, and Shane Anderson. Thank you for your continued support. Stay tuned for more character builds on this channel, and with everything said and done, MinMax Munchking out. Talk to you soon.